The quest to choose the next Super Eagles coach is well and truly on. But big questions are yet to be answered. Should it be an indigenous coach or a foreign coach? What should prevail in choosing a coach for the Super Eagles? Should it be temperament, dexterity, style, or leadership? We've asked these big questions as Arise News does a deep dive into what should make up the nucleus of the next coach of the Super Eagles. The 2023 AFCON was a watershed moment as it created new vigor and hope for the Nigerian national team, with a lot of people expected so much after a second place finish in Ivory Coast.
The whole Nigeria in unison were in total support.
Okay.
And at that point, getting to the finals alone was like a collector's item for Nigerians. It was that relief. You know, at that point, every Nigerian felt free from bondage. Every Nigerian felt so elated. And indeed, the president capped it all. You know, he watched the game. The vice president were there in the tribune. He was so excited. He came in during the semi-finals. He came during the finals. The Senate president. The government was total in his support. The minister was super legendary in ensuring that everything, for the first time in a long time, there was a wonderful synergy between the government and the Nigerian Football Federation, and also those of us that have, not just me, you know, some other presidents, you know, some other general secretaries in the past, we're all united in ensuring that we get to that bridge. And indeed, the man at the helm of affairs, Ibrahim Gusso, my dear brother, I think it was faultless because it was everywhere. Everything he needed to do, he did. The General Secretary, Dr. Sanusi, you could see that close harmony, you know. And for once in a long time, I was proud, essentially very, very proud to see that we could put this kind of performance, not just on the pitch, off the pitch. We celebrated ourselves on the pitch, off the pitch, because for once there was so much unity.
I mean, the run of Super Eagles was up and down. At first, after the first game, I remember my famous tweet that went viral, Super Chickens, because I felt we couldn't, you know, consolidate in that game. But I was proven wrong, because actually, now, many games down the line, we now know how strong the Equatorial Guineans were, you know, and they played a very good game. You saw what they did to teams like Ivory Coast and all of that, you know. Then the second game, we tried stabilizing a bit, you know, we peeped Ivory Coast, then, you know, we went ahead to, you know, also beat Guinea-Bissau to qualify. So it's been that run, but to a large extent, it showed when we got to the crunch stages that we needed more experience in the coaching crew. We needed more of a man, you know, that was a tactician that could pretty much read the game and he'll do the dynamism. I mean, those are the kind of things the likes of Joe Bomfrey brought to the team then, you know, the likes of Clemens Westerhoff brought to the team. They pretty much will know how to be able to take the game on. And I think that was what was lacking with Pesero big time. And for a long while now, it's been lacking. I mean, when you even look back at the days, even coaches that we never really rated, the likes of Philippe Troussier of this world, they still had that little dint, you know, that they could turn around games at that point in time. But we had that lacking. Till today, you know, you still feel to a large extent that we could have done better in that game against Ivory Coast. You know, if we had a good coach that read the game in the first half, apart from the home pressure and everything, then we could have gone a lot further and all of that. So those circumstances were there. But all in all, it was a good performance by the Super Eagles. It's just about consolidating on them.
The big question everyone seeks to answer is, why choose a foreign coach over an indigenous coach? But once again, questions are being asked about the technicality and the tacticality of indigenous coaches. Can it match with the rest of the world? Is the big question.
For several reasons, I believe, and every discerning football mind will understand why I believe at that point in foreign coaches. I've dealt with our indigenous coaches. I've seen their flaws. I've seen the good, bad, and ugly part of it. But I'm beginning to have a paradigm shift because events as they've unfolded recently, if you're talking about coaching, how do you encapsulate it? In terms of luck, is there luck in coaching? The element of luck? Yes, there's an element of luck. The very clear example is Faye, the coach of Cote d'Ivoire, remotely. If they had mentioned 1,000 coaches to coach Cote d'Ivoire, his name wouldn't have been in that 1,000 list. That couldn't perform that feat. A seasoned foreign coach, so to speak. If you look at Senegal, who developed Senegal football to this level? He's an indigenous coach. And he's still there and they still believe in it. But what is the mentality of those coaches and our coaches? It's different. There are some things that are better left unsaid. Now, who should I subscribe to? We've been able to build and nurture a team. We've nurtured a team. Pizarro did excellently well. I don't have any regrets hiring him. No regrets. I saw his pedigree and I had conversations with a lot of people, even in FIFA, and his close friend Mourinho had before we were able to. And even though it started slowly, but the end justify the reason we brought him.
True.
So I don't have any regret. But under his internship was a player that was once regarded as one of the best wingers in the world. Finidi George, one of the best wingers at the point. A player that had also informal or call it formal internship as a player under one of the best coaches in the world, Louis van Gaal. A player that under Ray Betis, it was excellent. In Ajax, if you know Ajax, you should know that they believe in developmental football, where they teach you how to chest, trap, play the ball again. So he has all those virtues. So what do we need? This is my strong personal opinion, is to encourage him.
But some people say that the audition, that particular audition.
He played two friendly games. He lost one. I made negative history because Mali has not beaten us in over 40 years. I won I made positive history. We've never beaten Ghana in over 30 years. Now, what do we need to do? To me, it's my opinion, very strong opinion, personal opinion. It doesn't have to be reckoned with, but it's a strong personal opinion. And I'm sure Finidi George will be surprised I'm saying this. I believe, I've seen him, I've worked with him. I brought him on as president, when I was president, as one of the assistant coaches. He has some virtues that we need as a coach. Leadership.
I don't know about Amunike, because I know you're close to...
No, I'm coming to Amunike. Okay. Leadership. He has dexterity, and most importantly, humility.
Okay.
He has come unscathed. There's no encumbrance. If you take Finidi, you wave him around, you will not see any encumbrance around him. I know I'm saying this. There are so many information that I have that you don't have. There are so many things that I know that you don't know. So what do we do with somebody like Finidi that played under some of the best coaches in the world, that also coach at that level, and also coach one of our indigenous and one of the most successful teams in Africa, Eyimba? What do we do with him? We can build capacity around him. When you see a foreign coach, we can also have a foreign technical assistant. We can have a foreign technical assistant that you will not see, but will be doing a lot of work. I was privileged to watch one of Arsenal training in London Connie some time ago. Arsene Wenger only came out towards the end of the training. We had defenders, coaches. We had some coaches working with the midfielders, with the attackers, with the wingers, with set pieces, loads and loads of coaches. So football has gone where you just attribute the success to just one person. It's gone beyond that. Far, far beyond that. And if we must be global as a country, we must apply today's method. And what is today's method? There's nothing wrong with Finidi being the technical advisor of the Super Eagles. Then we have a world-class physical trainer that can double as a goalkeeper's coach, or that can double as one of the technical assistants. A hard worker. You don't need any name. I give another example. When Bonfrey Joe and Westerhoff came, nobody knew Bonfrey Joe. He was behind the scene.
True.
He was a physical trainer.
Yeah.
But there was a transition. And he won the Olympics gold. And he was there for Nigeria for some time. Carlos Queiroz was, when Man U in their best days, it was Carlos Queiroz and McLaren. They did wonderfully well with Alex Ferguson. They won everything they need to win. And they went and became their own bosses. I give you an example with Arteta. Under internship of who?
Pep Guardiola.
Pep Guardiola. Today is rubbing shoulders with Pep Guardiola. And if you look at him, when he's standing, he goes back, he looks at the iPad. Who is giving him the iPad? That's one of the technical assistants. You don't know him. I might know him because I'm an Arsenal supporter, but you don't know him. You know. So what I'm trying to say is, you can build capacity around him. You can have some coaches around him. If we are sincere, there's nothing wrong with Amunike even working in that capacity. Because Amunike is very technical. Amunike is sound. But there are other elements that I might not want to talk about. You know, Amunike is very, very sound. But there are some people too, that their forte might not be in coaching, but in technical directorship. Like in the academics. There are some people that are like that.
Like Olise?
I'm not going to, I play the speech. Olise, listen, I talked to him. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, he's a good coach.
Yeah.
And exactly what we wanted to do with him. You remember I called him the Pep Guardiola of Africa.
Yeah, you gave him that name.
I gave him that name. I don't have any regret. He is an excellent guy, he's a good coach. He had a reason why he left just a few days to a very crucial game. Everybody have their idiosyncrasy, and I don't blame him for that, you know. So, you know, that, like I said, there are some issues with our homegrown coaches, you know, that perhaps might be one of the issues, you know. So, but then I don't have anything. So if we are very genuine, extremely genuine, Amunike can be around. Why? Because of the transition already from Pizarro, assembling these players, where Finidi has been a pivotal, has been an integral player in the team. If it was Amunike being an integral, yes, we'll say Finidi work with Amunike. But now, it's Finidi that is there. And he has all the qualities in terms of leadership, in terms of dexterity, in terms of humility, in terms of modesty, in terms of not being encumbered.
If you check back historically, we've always had head coach, then we've had a foreign advisor, a very technical advisor. That's what we used to call them. If you remember, at some point, the chief coach was the likes of Christian Chukwu. We had also technical advisors, all right? We've always had that model, but it comes to the brass tacks of who manages the team, who manages the techniques. And when you look at modern football, that's why we call them managers, because they are all in all the team managers. They manage the footballers, they manage the pay. The only person that, if I can remember in recent memory, that managed all of them effectively was the likes of Clemens Westerhoff. It was like the quintessential manager. But also, when you look at it, the technical depth is also lacking. But there are many Nigerian coaches that are beginning to garner the technical depth. See what the likes of Amunike did with Tanzania. And this is not in support of anybody, because I know there's a short list going on. You need somebody that's also able to read the game and deliver. See what the likes of Keshi used to do back in the days for Togo and a couple of other things like that. Even see what Sia did, to some certain extent. You will see that there was a technical depth in there. A foreign technical advisor, for me, the question would be, how will you manage the dichotomy between him and the coach in a scenario where everybody wants to be dominant? The thing also has to be said, can't we get a local coach that has a technical depth? Because to a large extent, we've had local coaches that have gone a long way at bringing about that technical balance. We had a Samson Siasia that took us to silver in the Olympics in Beijing. That did very well. Yes, you also argue he didn't qualify for us for the World Cup. We had challenges that year. But he brought in a level of depth. You cannot say the likes of them, Keshi, didn't have like their own technical, outlook on things. He took us even to the World Cup, past the group stage. We faced formidable opposition, the likes of France and all of that. Yes, you say that was, but also the question is, do we even have the materials as regards the boys that we're going to execute that game? So it's all a mixed bag, but I don't want a case where we're going to have a lot of dichotomy across board again. What we should focus on is one coach that can carry, if he now wants to get that assistance on his team, he can also put it in the bill, but not a dominant person, because when you have that person on the other side, in the end, what always happens, like we used to have back in the days, was the fact that the technical advisor now pretty much dominated the whole thing. And you had to be recalling that somebody was the chief coach. Because if you remember, those times that we even had the likes of the Buffon and all of that, we had like a chief coach of the Eagles. But we now had a foreign technical advisor that dominated in the end. And that dichotomy is always very problematic.
If there is anything that usually draws sharp criticism, has to be pay packets between foreign coaches and indigenous coaches. The big question is, why do indigenous coaches earn far less than foreign coaches?
I don't know what the Nigerian Football Federation offered Peseiro. You are just saying, and I don't want to believe they offer Peseiro that, because Ibrahim is an accountant. You should understand that. Ibrahim does not do what he cannot afford. Ibrahim looks at his budget together with the executive committee and will come out with what he can afford. So, and when you say the situations are different, clearly they are different, because they leave their home, their foreign home, they leave their parents, their children, their family, they still fend for them while they are here. And it's not that they want to do that, but like I keep saying, when we started with Keshi, we're paying Keshi, at the point where the 5 million naira we're paying Keshi was about $50,000 at that point.
Yes.
If you look at the exchange rate when I started. So, and even when we were paying Olise, it was commensurate to us what we're paying some of these foreign coaches. His conditions were not radically different. So because of what, his family was in Belgium. Keshi's own family was in Atlanta, was in the US. So the situations are different. Everything has to do with your negotiating power. If, for example, Philly George's family is in Nigeria, it's easy to negotiate with him and say, okay, let us not dollarize your payment. Let's use Naira because I want to strengthen Naira. I want to be part of the economic process in this country. So there are different situations. So I don't think we should just jump and say we want to pay. But it also depends on what they have. Is the federal government ready to support them? Like the federal government was able to pay Peseiro. If the federal government did not pay Peseiro, by now we're talking about litigation, we're talking about cash, we're talking about all those things. But Peseiro is very thankful. He called me and he was extremely thankful to the president of the republic, to the president of the Nigerian Football Federation, to the team. He thanked me, thanked a lot of people, thanked my family. So he's very happy. He's, whether you like it or not, he's part of our history in terms of football. And I believe the relationship, is not that they fought and they left, no. There was no bad egg, there was no animosity between Peseiro and Nigerian Football Federation, which means in future, if he wants to come back and nominate anybody, it's always good to leave your doors open. It's always good to be. That's why I try as a human being not to quarrel with anybody, because there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
But in the meantime, we used the opportunity to ask the former president of the Nigerian Football Federation, Amaju Mervyn Pinnick, if he has settled his case with David Adeleke out of court, or are they still in court?
David and I, we talk with, like he said, I don't have that, like I told you, we've gone beyond all those things. It's family, and I'm very, very proud of our relationship. And like I said, even if your son strays, you strengthen him up and you move on with your life,
Yeah.
So, and if I'll be around, he has 3 of the biggest shows in the world coming up during his Timeless tour. If I'm opportune to be around that neighborhood, definitely I will attend. And it's beyond that for me. I'm one of his ardent fans, supporter, and I don't think I have any regret about it.